Finally now we get to put this small camera into the spark plug holes and have a look inside the cylinders. What are we gonna find?
Oh no!
Oh my God.
Here's a still image from one of the cylinders showing what I hope is just carbon buildup on the surface of the piston. To get a better look, I want to make a video of each cylinder while rotating the engine by hand.
To turn this engine by hand, we need to be able to get to these pulleys to get a wrench on them. To do that, we need to get this air box out of the way. The first thing to do is get this mass airflow connector disconnected. There is a button on the back. You have to press it really firmly till it clicks like that. And it comes off. You can see there that little button, not very helpfully located on the back. Anyway, that's done. And then this screw here, or bolt, needs to come out. This is a 13mm. And this looks like it's already been taken out. And then, yeah, this is loose as well. That's the next thing to take out. So this has been out recently. All right, that's that little feller. And I need to take this off, which, I mean, it's already very loose. I don't think we need to worry about that, to be honest. And then we need to get this oil filler pipe out. That should be it. Yeah, so that came out suspiciously easy. Of course, like with everything on this car, it seems everything's too big to actually get out. Will that come off? Hello? Oh, it will, okay. That helps. How about you? You want to come out to... What was... Oh, that's the little circlip. Come on, buddy. Ah, yeah, and then the mass airflow has a little plastic clip in the back. How about now, everybody? There we go. That was that little plastic clip in the back. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we can see much easier now. Look, there's an engine. Cool. Okay.
Prior to trying to turn this engine by hand, I did put 8 quarts of oil into the engine. Plus, I squirted generous amounts of WD-40 into all the spark plug holes. Then I left that to soak for 24 hours. And so now is the moment of truth. We'll see if we can turn the engine.
Let's push this guy up there to get it out of the way. The things that we're looking at here, to the best of my knowledge, down there is the water pump that you probably can't see. This is the alternator, pretty obvious. That's the power steering pump. This is the air conditioning compressor. These guys are just pulleys. It must be a tensioner pulley and what have you there. And then this guy is the crankshaft pulley. And the bolt on that is a 24mm. And so this is the pulley that's attached to the crankshaft of the engine. That is going to turn the very core of the engine. So let's see if we can turn that. It has a 24mm bolt on it. Get it on, there we go, it's on. Oh yeah. I do have all the spark plugs out, so it shouldn't be difficult to move. But I'm not hearing any weird crunching noises. And it moves pretty good. So what we're going to do is use being able to turn the engine to go and look inside the cylinders, and we want to be able to move the piston down in the cylinder so we can see as much as possible, and then we're going to go from there.
This will make a lot more sense if you know how the engine is laid out. I'm going to draw a diagram of the car. Please don't be distracted by the attention to detail. Here's the front of the car. In America, the driver sits on the left-hand side, and the main part of the engine is the crankcase, and in a Porsche that sits in the back. The crank pulley is attached to the crankshaft, and that goes all the way through to the front of the engine, and then the crankshaft is connected with the connecting rods or con rods to the end of each of the pistons. And now the engine is split into 2 banks, and the bank on the left hand side is bank 1 and the bank on the right is bank 2. And then it's just 1, 2, 3 all in bank 1, and then 4, 5, 6 in bank 2. I also put the numbers on the side of the car just to help me get into the swing of it and start remembering which bank and which cylinder everything is. Here's the video from inside the cylinders. I think it is possible for this to be the most boring video ever in the history of the world, and so it's sped up a great deal, and I'm only showing a few seconds of each cylinder. And now as we move on to cylinder 4 here, what is that? I'm not sure what it is. It's difficult to tell because the screen is so fuzzy. Perhaps that's where a valve has just sort of touched the top of the piston a little bit, and we're looking at some bare metal there. Now online I did find this picture, which seems to be a similar, at least, engine, and it doesn't quite look like that damage, but it's not completely different. That's cylinder 4. Now if we refer back to the original diagram from earlier, you'll see that cylinder 4 is in the rear right of the engine. And on the rear right of the engine, there's a lot of oil leaking down. It seems to be coming from a pipe that's around where there's a bunch of cam timing and sensors, things that I don't fully understand what they're up to yet. And so maybe that's not related, but it is interesting that the piston that seems to have some sort of damage perhaps is also around the area where there is oil coming out of the timing system. The plot thickens. Here's the rest of the cylinders, number 5. And mercifully, there are only 6 cylinders in this engine. That's the last one. In the end, I would say that the pistons move easily, which is very good news. The quality of the Borescope image makes it difficult to say much more than that the pistons are not broken into pieces, which is very good news as well. Some of the pistons seem cleaner than others, and looking at the numbers, it seems that the pistons in the left bank, numbers 1, 2 and 3, are black and crusty, while the right bank, cylinders 4, 5 and 6, those are pretty dry and relatively clean looking. Also, of course, cylinder 4 has a possible valve impact, so no matter what, I need to check to see if there are any bent valves, starting with cylinder 4. Next up, I want to let that oil out of the engine and see if there are any bits and pieces in it that can give us some clue as to the reason for this engine's demise. Under the brand new sieve, 2 rare earth magnets and a lot of shop cloths, I want to try to get a sample of the engine oil, plus strain out as many bits of debris as I can. To remove a Porsche oil filter, you need a filter wrench that's 74mm in diameter and has 14 sides. I'd recommend not getting a plastic one or one made out of pressed metal. Go for the cast metal, as it doesn't bend and just works much better. Next, I took the filter apart to see if anything was stuck in it. Almost immediately, I found a little scroll of shiny metal. I began to make a collection of anything that I found. Next, I removed the sump plug to drain the oil. I first filled a clean container to be sent off for analysis. The rest of the oil flowed through the sieve with the rare earth magnets in it, and then onto a white cloth to help me catch any remaining debris. The largest items I found were these brown shards of plastic, plus these tiny black particles that stuck to the magnets. Any of you eagle-eyed viewers out there will have noticed the oil drip pan underneath the rear of the car from the very first video. Since day 1, this car has leaked oil from the rear oil pan. I want to take off the oil pan and check it for debris, plus see if there's a reason for it leaking so much, even when the engine doesn't even have any oil in it. After taking the oil pan off, I found that the oil pan gasket had already been broken and the gasket was falling apart. Just like the sieve, I found that the oil pan had a bunch of those brown plastic chips in it, and I suspect that the black little dots that were on the rare earth magnets are from this gasket. I checked pieces of this gasket with the rare earth magnets, and it is ever so slightly magnetic. I cleaned the oil pan with simple green, and I used a plastic pry tool to scrape off the gasket, And then I finished up with some isopropyl alcohol to give the surfaces a final clean. Now the secret ingredient was Goo Gone. It really helped to get the gasket material off. Here's a picture of the oil pan before, and here it is an hour and a lot of scrubbing later. I had to remove the 3 10mm screws securing the oil baffle to the pan in order to clean out some of the tiny little pieces of brown plastic that had got in there. I also found that the oil sump plug had been really mangled over the years, so I'll replace it with a new one before refilling the car with oil. It's quite likely that I'm going to have to take this oil pan off again before the car is running, and so I'm not going to put a gasket on yet. I'm just going to put it back on with the 2 plain surfaces and put the bolts on hand tight. This week we learned a lot about this car. On the good side, we found that the pistons and the cylinders are not smashed into pieces and that the engine is not seized. It actually turns pretty smoothly, so that's very good news. Also, on the good side is the fact that the oil leak from the oil pan is just it needs a new gasket, nothing major. On the downside, though, it is pretty bad. We found a bunch of those brown flecks of plastic all through the oil, so they must be all through the engine, I presume. Also those small flecks of metal as yet to be unidentified. And so I did take that oil sample and sent that away to be analysed. I'm not sure what's going to come back from that. Hopefully we'll get some more insights. Now that I know that the engine isn't smashed, it does seem worth trying to go a little deeper, and to do that it seems best to take the engine out. Now Porsche recommend that you take the engine and the transmission out all in one go. To do that it has to come out at the bottom of the car. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Next week the plan is to tie up a few last ends. I would like to do a leak down test and to get an idea of more what's going on in the engine before I take it apart. And then we're going to try to take the engine out. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. Till next time.